How is everyone today? How is everyone today?
Very blessed, thank you. And yourself?
Doing good. Doing
Yeah.
good. All right, let's see here. We're just getting started for the day.
I actually made it.
You made it. Very good. Awesome. Cool. Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll go over a couple things here and should have ourselves a good meeting. Did you get the meeting from did you get the link from the email?
To me?
Or just last week? Email?
Who?
Anybody?
I got a link from you. I'm not sure what it was for offhand, but I think that might have been the LSA meeting.
Okay. All right. Good enough.
I either got
All
it there or I got it from NSO, one or the other.
Okay. All right. Good. NSO, ClearStar, wherever. Okay. Good stuff. Well, it is 4 o'clock. It's a little bit after. So let's go ahead and get started with this thing. How many people here have installed a deadbolt on a metal door, hollow metal door, with no deadbolt prep, meaning you had to do it fresh from the start?
I think so.
Yeah. You can put it in the comments section or however you want to do it. It can be very difficult, and I've done it several ways. One of the very old school techniques, the person who trained me did not believe in spending very much money on tools, and so I got to learn how to do it. Now you can say that's a positive or a negative, or you can say they're cheap. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I've got several tools to be able to do that, and one of those tools is I can install a deadbolt on a hollow metal door or a metal frame door with no tools or jigs or specialty tools. It's very time consuming. It's very annoying. It's very obnoxious. You can slice out where that strike is or that latch is going to get mounted with a Dremel tool. You can make 2 thin slices after you make your center hole, obviously, and then you disconnect them and you kind of fold them in and you indent them and impress them. Now that weakens the door. It weakens everything that it's being held to, and it will work, but it's not ideal. Ideally, we would actually have something like this here. Let me see if I can share. Where's my share button? We would have something like this. There's 2 companies that make them actually. Can everybody see the Major Manufacturing?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, good. So Major Manufacturing here has this pit bull steel door. Basically, it's a stamp or a tap and die, almost like it just crushes the indent into the door. And you can use their jig or whatever jig you have, and you'll be able to get this on there. Let me just take one look at who all's in here. We've got about 20 people in here. I have to mute some people so that we don't get background noise. Okay. Good. So the hole would drill for regular 2 3/4 or 2 3/8 back set, either one. If you're on a metal door, you're probably doing the commercial version, the 2 3/4. But what you'll do is you'll see that we've done the same exact thing. We use a jig and drill out the holes from each side and then drill your center hole in. Then we're going to be left with this right here. Now with this type of door prep right here, what's going to happen when you go to install your deadbolt latch? You're going to go to put it in there and it's not going to line up properly because it's supposed to be in about another 1/8 of an inch or so, okay, or 1/4 of an inch or whatever it is, whatever that plate is. And it's not going to line up properly. And if you try and force it on there, you're going to end up with a little bit of a hole that's going to be a gap. You're going to put a lot of strain on the lock and the bolt itself and on the key. And then when you go to shut the door, it's probably not going to shut because your latch is still sticking out just a little bit. I'm looking to see if I've got one handy. Unfortunately, I don't have one. I have a deadbolt handy, but you know what I mean? It's sticking out just a little bit. This tool is going to fix that. And what it's going to do is it's basically you're going to have a piece that goes inside the door. Okay, you can see this one also has this little welded frame edge right here. All right. So with that little welded frame edge, doors are going to actually react differently to this tool. And I actually learned that today. So we need to keep in mind which side is that folded edge and rounded edge. You'll notice that we put the die inside of the draw die, meaning that the metal is going to be drawn into that die. That's going to get placed inside the door, and it usually has a little string on it. My string's long gone, but I would highly recommend you have a string on there, because what'll happen is if you lose it, it goes down inside the door, and then you can't get it again. Then it's very difficult to get out of there. Okay, so I recommend tying that string on there for sure. And then you're going to put the outer portions out here. This is where you get that center mark. You're marking that center line right here. Well, you can also make sure that your tap and die is on center line. That's why it's actually cut into the die itself right here. So you can match that center mark off. So you're centered in the hole. Then you're going to get the center forming die over the latch hole. You're going to pencil mark in your edge. It's going to show where the center mark is. And then you're also going to have, it's going to make those two little indentations for the screws for you as well. Okay. Now, I've since lost my clamping plates. Sometimes you need them, sometimes you don't. What's going to happen is we're basically deforming and crushing this spot on the door and putting that indent into it. And so the door is going to distort and disform when you do this. So if you put these two clamps on and these two metal pieces, it's going to prevent the door from doing that. Okay. If you don't have those, you just need two heavier duty pieces of metal that you could put in there, and you can use any kind of clamp that you want. I'm going to show you a little bit different way on how I do it, but either way, it'll accomplish the job. If you're going to use a box wrench, you use an 1 1/8" box wrench or socket. I use a crescent wrench just because that's what I have. It's going to be a lot more convenient, and I don't need this one specific giant tool just for this. A lot of people don't know what those clamps are for, but that is what it's for. It's for as that door crushes in and you're deforming it, it's going to spread out. It's going to keep it from doing that. The hex die that goes in right here, that actually, as you twist it in, it's driving a center punch in, it's like an Allen head screw that's actually got a little center punch pinned into it that's hardened tool steel, and it'll actually make the indentations perfectly where you need to have your screws drilled for this. Okay. This is going to be for mounting locating the mounting screws. Once it's done, you can see how it impacts that door. And now we have that perfect hole in here. Okay. One thing that they don't tell you on this particular website is that your hole is also going to be distorted too. Okay. Almost every single time I do this, the center hole gets distorted, and you cannot simply just shove your latch in and go. You're actually going to need to bring your drill bit back out, and you're going to need to re-drill this 1-inch hole that goes down the center of the pipe. Every single time I have to re-drill this hole. I drill it first with the hole saw with the jig, and then I actually have a step bit that goes up to 1 inch, and I drive that in there because it's going to take that round hole, and as you crush it, it's going to make it into a little bit more of an oval, if you will. So you just need to reroute that back out, re-drill that back out so it's centered again, and then your strike and your deadbolt latch will go directly right in. Okay. A couple of things: failure to lube the draw bolts could cause bearing seizing. So you always want to make sure this thing is nice and lubricated. This is about a $200 tool. I think when I saw it last, it was about $203 online, something like that. So it's a pretty expensive tool, but it is very, very heavy duty. It is quality grade. It's an absolute must if you install hardware all the time. And I really do highly recommend it. Once again, here's all the little different pieces. We've got the draw bolt. That is the actual bolt that goes through everything. You've got the thrust bearing to make sure that that stays lubricated with grease, and make sure I keep the whole thing lubricated so it doesn't rust. It gives it a nice protective layer. Then you've got the form die, which is the die on the outside, and the draw die. The form die gets drawn into the draw die, and it creates the stamp in the metal. Okay. The pit bull ears, when in use, will make sure these are located towards the folded side of the door, not the side with the welded metal seams. So if you do use the side with the ears, it does need to be away from the side with the welded seams, and we'll show that with my installation that we did today. So for those that are Wayne's Lock Shop members, you just go to wayneslockshop.com, go ahead and sign in. You click your login button and you sign in. And you guys don't get that website. I do. This is the back end where we build things. Then it's going to come to the main page here. I'm going to go to forms, just like so at the top. And it's going to take me to the forums section. When I'm on the forums section, we'll go down to general locksmithing. And as we go to general locksmithing, we'll go to install deadbolt on hollow metal door. Very cool. We actually installed an electronic lock on here. Okay. All right. So this could be a difficult process if you've never done it before, but I'm going to try and prepare you for all the things that can happen. Now, you'll notice that I have some different obstacles in my installation than we had on the other one. One here, we're using the Pro Lock jig, which is a fantastic jig. Both of them are absolutely amazing. The Major one and the Pro Lock one, both are top level. You simply cannot buy any better jigs. Both of them are extremely high quality, really, really good jigs. And I'm very happy with both of them. I actually was tagging along with my employee, and he's got the Pro Lock jig. So that's why we've got this one on here. Very heavy duty compared to the plastic stuff that you're going to find at the hardware store. So now he's got the inner portion drilled out. He's going to go ahead and drill that 1-inch hole saw with a bimetal hole saw through the center of the door here. That's going to give us our 1-inch hole. And this door is actually a sound door. So you'll notice we didn't have this in the other door, but on this door, we're going to have a little bit of sound barrier in here. It's basically just foam or cardboard in this case. You're going to need to make sure that we cut all of that out and cut out a section as long or as tall as that pit bull device is all the way over to the edge of the door. So we're going to have to pull this cardboard out, and we're going to have to pull it out all the way over to here. You can see he's pushing this out. Okay. So once he pushes that out, now we've got ourselves a nice clear space to be able to insert the tool. And the soundproofing is actually working to our advantage with this particular installation. Why is it working to our advantage? Because if I drop it, it can't go anywhere. It's just going to get caught up on the cardboard or the styrofoam, and it's going to sit there and stay. If there's nothing inside the door, it's going to go straight to the bottom of the door, and you just lost a $200 tool. Not fun. I've actually done that too. I've had to fish them out of there with magnets and stuff. It can be done, but it is not fun. Okay, here again, he's cleaning some more of that cardboard stuff out of the way. And then here is the tool. Notice mine's been rattling around in the truck. It's a little older, a little rustier, but you know, my previous, this tool actually predates me even being in the locksmithing game. This was purchased third party, so it had already been in use. This tool right here is probably 25 years old or so, and it's installed thousands and thousands of deadbolts. So it's definitely a really high quality product, and it will work for you and your needs. So here you can see those little ears, and then again, those little dimples right here that are going to mark those screw drilling locations. That piece is going to go inside the door, just like so. You can see Josh is putting it inside the door here. Putting it inside, kind of tapering it down and in, making sure that the ears are going away from the welded seam of the door, and then the draw die is inside and the form die is out here. Now you see we've got that bearing, and what that bearing does is it allows all the friction and the pressure to be on the bolt. If the friction and the pressure were not on this bearing, they would be on the block. And if it was on the block, it would try and turn and scratch the door and mess up your stamping as you do it here. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten it down with the crescent wrench. Notice that a lot of other people use the 1 1/8" box wrench or whatever, but you could use a crescent wrench as well. And it's drawing the die into the other die. A little bit closer picture of that. Getting it stamped all the way in. And again, here's that Allen head right here. Okay. And here it is, just about fully seated. Once it's fully seated, we can then back it off and pull it out of the hole. Now you can see that this stamp is nice and clean in here. Okay, nice and clean stamping. Now I lost my 2 bars and my C-clamps. So I just have these giant vice grips, and I'll go ahead and make my impression in the door, and then I'll come back and I'll crush it and make it flat again, because you can see how it bubbles out just a little bit. Okay, and it takes its toll on these seam doors like here, but that's why you want to put those ears towards that side, so it kind of spaces it out from there just a little ways. Now we're going to insert the deadbolt like so, drilling the holes for the deadbolt. Lining everything up, making sure that everything's nice and clean and tight. Here are the screws installed, and now you can see it's all nice and flush and flat. Okay, the latch does not stick out, the bolt does not stick out from the door face, so it's going to go into the door frame nice and easily. Okay, and here we have it. We're just going to install this Lockley electronic lock on here. This is the reason we're doing this. Go ahead and put your wires up underneath and bring it right back in. And then let's see, what's he doing here? He's still running those wires up underneath it. Then here's your Lockley electronic lock on the outside. Here's the backing plate on the inside. If you've not installed these Lockley locks, they're actually really nice to install. They have adhesive on both the outer and the inner plates. So if you've ever installed electronic access, especially electronic deadbolts, putting them on there, you almost need like a 3rd or 4th hand to be able to try and stick that stuff on there. This has the adhesive built right into it. So it works very nice, and it holds and sticks it perfectly as long as you get it right on that first stick. Okay. Now here's what it looks like from the outside. Okay, you can see right here, this is where that indentation was made. You are going to get a little bit of warping in the door. We're not going to bend metal that much and not get any kind of indentation or anything in there, but it does look really clean. It's not creating a security hazard, and it's doing exactly what it's supposed to. Okay. And then here you can see the lock with the latch installed all together, all in one piece. And here's the rest of the door, all done. Okay, so that's pretty much what it looks like from start to finish with that particular installation. Does anybody have any questions about?
Couple of comments if you want.
Go ahead.
Important to keep it lubricated when you're cranking that bolt down.
Yes.
Second is that bolt is not just a screw you're turning in. It is a bolt.
Yeah.
It requires force.
It
For
sure
those
does.
that carry a socket wrench, it's a socket works real well on that too. And don't be surprised if you're working on a nice clean door with a primer on it. At least it appears to be primer of some sort.
Yeah.
When you're working on an older door that's been painted 4 or 5 times, it will crack all the paint around it and it will look ugly, but just know that's not your fault.
Right.
And then also your lock spreads out a fair share on that door, which helps the door from crushing. But if you're just putting a deadbolt on there, it's wise to use a anti-crushing ring. Earl Ames came out with the idea many, many years ago, but other companies have picked up on it too, just keep it from crushing. And there's multiple ways of doing that.
Okay. Gotcha. Good stuff. Okay, that's great information, John. Thank you so much. Did anybody else have any questions, comments, or concerns?
What about if you used a drive-in bolt instead of Mortiser?
So you could sure use the drive-in bolt. Have you ever installed them?
Mhm.
Okay. Did you ever have problems with them?
With
Later?
drive-in bolts?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I have. I've had a lot of warranty calls back after the fact. If you look at like kicking tests and battering ram tests, and things like that, it doesn't hold as well as being able to actually screw the plate into the door. So it is definitely an option. I have used that option. Sometimes that option is required. I personally feel this is a more secure installation and it will last longer with less problems, in my personal opinion.
If you use a drive-in, what you do is you save one of the cutouts from a wood door that you previously did with the edge bore boring through it, and then you shove that in offset of the face hole to support that bolt in the door on the drive-in bolt. That will help support it.
It's good.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that could work. That would work as well. All righty. Does that answer your question, Wes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns about installing deadbolt on metal door? All righty. Got a couple people that haven't seen that happen before. First time I've attended, first time I've seen that. Drive-in latch. Okay, good.
Emphasize again the string on the inside portion and how important that is.
It is important. If you lose one down the door and you got to fish it out one time, it'll be the last time you ever do it. And actually, fishing wire works great, like spider braid fishing wire, because it won't melt. It's not nylon. The nylon stuff is not as good, in my opinion. I like the braided line, or even like some braided string, but there's actually a bolt that you can actually tie it right on to. And when you tie it onto that bolt, it cannot come off. But it is deadly, deadly serious. If you drop it down in the door, you're going to be very, very lucky to get it back. You'll either have to cut a hole in the bottom of the door to try and retrieve it, or you'll try and have to fish a magnet down there. The way that I did it is I fished a magnet down in there, but that's tricky too, because the magnet's trying to stick to the door the whole way down. So it's not fun. It's going to turn your hour-long project into a 2-hour-long project very, very quickly.
Now, you also mentioned about the offset seam on that door, on how the jig sits in there. You might want to talk about that a little bit more. And then how does one deal with when the seam is down the center of the door?
Oh boy. I'm trying to think. I haven't had any issues with the center seam down the center of the door. It's when it's offset like that it tends to give us the most problems. The way that I read the instructions, the ears go towards the seam so that it kind of creates that little bit of space from it. It's not trying to crush directly on the seam itself. It's also going to help if, like you said, that it's a new door. If that door is coming apart or splitting in any way, shape, or form, I would highly recommend that you not do the job, because you're only going to make that door split further and you're going to create more problems in the long run. So as far as the seam down the middle, I have personally ran into that being an advantage. That's usually better. And that, it doesn't matter which side the ears on in that case. It crushes it a whole lot more flat. It tends to be when there's one side or the other that has a seam, that's when it tends to fluctuate your hole on this one. Have you had a different experience, John?
I always wonder, well, I don't do a whole lot of those, but I always wondered where the seam, how deep it goes in there, and you can't really crush it completely and get a good imprint on the edge of the door if it's got the center seam.
Okay.
In those cases, what we've done is use that H bracket. I forget who makes it. That it's a kind of a bridge, a vertical bridge, and creates the support for the bolt. And then you cut out the rectangle again. Do it the old-fashioned way.
So you screw in the tabs basically, and then it gives
it's one bracket.
One bracket.
It's not two tabs. It's a single item. And who makes that stuff? It's it's not Major. I forget who maybe it is Major. I'll look real quick. But you
Joe
keep
or
talking.
somebody.
You keep talking. I'll figure it out.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns on installing hardware or deadbolt on a hollow metal door? There are several different ways to skin the cat, and I'm not trying to say that this is the only way. I'm just saying this is one of my favorite ways. There it is. So there's your H bracket right there. So then you'd have screws on either side, and then that would actually create the plate. How big of a hole do you need? You'd have to cut out the whole latch though for that to work, correct?
You cut out the rectangle of the exact latch. Yes.
Okay, so again, we're back to Dremel tool, cutting out a pretty big chunk of the door, probably making, like if I think of kick test or battering ram test, if you have an installation where you have that much cut out of the door, or like the example that I talked about where I cut in the two straps and folded them in basically, that's still going to be a weaker point on the door than doing it this way. I personally feel that this is the strongest, most secure way to put a deadbolt on a door. There are other ways to do it, and they're all perfectly legitimate, but this one is the strongest way that I've seen how to do it. All righty. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Do we have suggestions for what we want to see next week? Does anybody have any opinions or suggestions for next week? Nothing?
Nope.
Oh boy. All right. Well, we're actually going to be in for a pretty big treat next week. I believe Chris Tull, who is an antique safe restoration specialist, will be my special guest. So we will get to look at some very pretty eye candy with some of the safes that he has restored. So make sure you tune in next week. You're going to have the same link, same time, same bat channel. All
Is
righty.
he the gentleman from from Arvada?
I believe so.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Now you're talking about Locksmith Live, because you've also got Locksmith United next week too.
Correct. Yes.
And you might want to clarify the difference for everybody who wants to join that as well.
Absolutely. This is the Locksmith Live show. This is designed to be about a 30-minute show to go over just one aspect of the industry, something that I've done, put into Wayne's Lock Shop and covered some of my career with, basically me going back over some of the things that I've done in a career. Locksmiths United is a separate meeting that's about an hour long where we usually have a guest and we go into much more detail about what that guest does, what their profession is, and all of that fun stuff. So 2 separate meetings next week. The first one will be at 4 o'clock, which is this one, the Locksmith Live meeting. The second one will be at 5 o'clock, which is the Locksmiths United meeting. I will be sending links out to all of those or both of those meetings via emails. If you're on the Wayne's Lock Shop subscription list, we'll post them on ClearStar, we'll put them on NSO, and we'll put them in Locksmith Nation. So if you're a member of any of those groups, you'll have access to the links and you'll be able to join in all the fun that we have. All righty. Well, thank you everybody for being here. We'll see you next week. This recording will also go into Wayne's Lock Shop. So if you are a member there, feel free to check it out. If you're not a member, feel free to enjoy a free 30-day trial. You can see all of the things that we're putting in there and all the things that we're building. I put all my pictures and organize everything with a little blurb. And then if we go over it in a meeting like this, I'll add the video directly to that section so you can access it at any time. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Here's one last thing. If you want to check out that jig or that pit bull tool, Major Manufacturing or MAGORMFG.com. This one, I just did a quick Google search for Major Manufacturing pit bull tool. All righty. We'll end the meeting. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining.
Have a blessed evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You as well.